You are listening to the Keep the Weight Off podcast with Dr. Angela, episode number 105.
Welcome to the Keep the Weight Off podcast, where we bust all the dieting myths and discover not just how to lose weight, but more importantly, how to keep it off. We go way beyond the food, and we use science and psychology to give you strategies that work. And now your host, Dr. Angela Zekman.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the podcast this week. I am just back from Sacramento. As a matter of fact, I just got off the plane a few hours ago. So I've been spending time with my sister and her family, and that's been wonderful. And Marcelle's been back home in Washington. Have you been keeping the fort down okay, Marcelle?
I don't know about that, but yes, I've been here in Washington waiting for you to get back so we could do this podcast.
Yeah, I know. It's like, So I just felt like I didn't want to do the podcast while I was down visiting the kids because I just needed to spend time with the kids. You know how sometimes you just
that's understandable.
Have to spend quality time with people that you love. So I wanted to talk this week about something that happened last week. After we recorded last week's podcast, I got some very sad news. Not my particular version of the sad news, but what happened affects all of us. And I've been talking about it in the clinic with our patients, and I've been talking about it in our Empowered Weight Loss membership as well. And so, because this type of news affects every single one of us really, and that's why I just think it's super important to share it. So I'll tell you what happened. That is one of my really vibrant friends who was doing wonderful things in the world, lost her life to diabetes last week. And, I'm not exactly sure. I know she was in her late 50s. So that's really quite young to lose your life. And so I was really shocked. It was a sudden death. I was really shocked and very saddened. I wasn't necessarily surprised because I knew she had diabetes and I knew she was at high risk for sudden death. I knew that she had been, struggling with other forms of vascular disease. So I was really surprised and shocked. So I wanted to talk about all of this because I think it's important. So this vibrant woman spent a lifetime battling food and alcohol addiction. She was brilliant, and she overcame her alcohol addiction and got sober and stayed sober for as long as I knew her, which is absolutely amazing. And I just absolutely loved it when she would post stuff on Facebook and say, how many years she'd been sober. And she just was really, really proud of that. And I was proud of her for it. But she never really understood that obesity is a disease. I mean, we've talked a few podcasts ago about how important it is to understand that obesity is a disease. And she never really understood the addictive power of sugar and flour. She'd had a gastric bypass surgery many, many years ago, and she'd lost some weight, but then she'd put it back on. And she was never really quite able to get her diabetes under control, and her blood sugar stayed high. And that caused damage to her blood vessels over time. And that's what eventually killed her. Does that make sense, Marcelle?
Yeah, I do. It's just really sad. So I'm sorry for your loss.
Yeah, I am too. I'm sorry for the loss of this vibrant woman because she was very active in the mental health community and she was going around the country speaking. And so it's a loss for all of us. And so, the interesting thing is in Empowered Weight Loss, I teach all of our members how to watch our emotional states. And I've been watching myself in my own emotional states as I've been experiencing all of the emotions that this untimely death is bringing up for me. So there's the initial shock, and then there's sadness and grief. And I teach about the scale of emotions. So the emotions range in a scale, and the bottom of the scale is like despair, and the top of the scale is like this sense of bliss and in love with all that is and in love with life. And so sadness and grief is pretty low on the scale. And then the emotions of anger and blame and jealousy and revenge are like the cluster of emotions that are just above those emotions of sadness and grief and shame and all of that. So I've been kind of watching myself go from sadness and grief to anger which has been really interesting. Sadness and grief to anger, and back down to sadness and grief, and back up to anger. And it's just a lot of vacillation. Now, I don't think that anybody who was watching me live my life would have any idea that I was experiencing any of this unless I were to actually say something to them. It's not like I'm walking around throwing things or anything like that. It's just that I'm just noticing that that's where my consciousness is, and I'm allowing all of those emotions to just be there to the best of my ability. But can you guess, Marshall, like who might be getting the brunt of my anger?
Oh, yes. I know who you're angry at. Our listeners might not know who you're angry at, but I do.
Okay. Who am I angry at?
The food industry.
I am so angry with the food industry. That is absolutely right. I am angry with people like Howard Schultz, who founded Starbucks, and I'm angry with, can't remember the name of the guy who started McDonald's. I'm angry with the CEO of Kellogg's. I'm angry with all of these food industry giants. RJ Reynolds, who, when we stopped them from making so much money from tobacco, they bought all of these food conglomerates up. I am just furious with all of these people for creating foods that are addictive and dangerous and deadly. The truth is that my friend would not be dead at such a young age if she'd never eaten processed food, right? She
Right.
would never have developed obesity. She would never have needed surgery. She would never have developed diabetes. She would never have suffered all the pain in her legs because she wasn't getting enough blood flow to her legs. She would have healthy blood vessels. She would not have died suddenly, and she would be alive today. And she would be doing all the amazing work she was doing in the mental health field. And so, yeah, I'm upset with the food industry. I always have been, but this just really highlights it for me, And then, get this. So I was working out one day at the gym, and there are TVs that are on all over my gym. And I noticed this ad. It was really intriguing ad. It was a celebrity couple. It was Black celebrities who were going out to a fancy dinner. And it turns out it was Cardi B and Offset. Do you know these two rappers? Do you know
I
anything
know who
about
Cardi B is. I think we all know who she is.
So I don't know if she's married to Offset or, I know they're a couple. So they're both rappers and they're all dressed up and they're headed out to a fancy meal. And then they sit down at a fancy table and a waiter in a black tie serves them. Guess what? It's a McDonald's meal. As soon as he sets the food down, it's like everything changes and they're sort of in a McDonald's setting. And like everything shifts
Oh my
magically.
gosh.
And there they are sitting down in McDonald's and they're eating this brand new thing called the Cardi B and Offset meal.
No
And I'm
way.
just like,
that is disgusting.
Oh, I was just livid. I was like, okay, I couldn't believe the marketing. So this is marketing specifically targeted to Black youth, to minorities, aimed at getting them to think that McDonald's is some sort of really cool thing to do, sort of like a
Right.
status symbol, right? The brazenness of it just made my blood boil. It really did. I'm just livid. And so many people talk about racial and ethnic equality. And yet here we have the food industry and frankly, Cardi B and Offset perpetuating this sort of targeted marketing of toxic, addictive, crap food to minority youth. And so then what happens? So underprivileged children develop obesity, right? And then society blames the kids and tells them that they're lazy and gluttonous and have no willpower. I mean, these poor kids don't have a chance. It's just like, drives me crazy.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, I mean, in these advertising companies, it's like you think that they stoop to these lows, and then you see these kind of commercials, and then they just go even lower.
I know,
And they have to, and they have to go even lower to get more attention. And they're so bold. They don't care. They just, as long as they can sell.
Yeah,
They just don't care, and it's shameful.
it is shameful. And the good news is I was looking at, on YouTube, I was watching the video on YouTube, And there are a lot of comments from people who are really disgusted with this whole campaign. So,
Oh, okay. Yeah, good.
I'm happy about that. So, but unfortunately, it's like when it comes to marketing, even bad news is a good thing. Even controversial stuff is a good thing because
Exactly.
it brings attention. It's attention. So I just want all of our listeners to be thinking about this. So what is it that can be done about this sort of thing? So, my goal in this podcast isn't to just bum you out and leave you hanging, but I also want you to be thinking, right? I think a little righteous anger in this case is appropriate. I really do. I mean, I know that the anger is helping me move out of grief, but I do believe a little righteous anger is appropriate. And I think the awareness of what's happening is huge. I'm not sure that anybody just naturally, watching this commercial would get angry without realizing what exactly was happening, right? So I just want our listeners to watch what the food industry is doing. Like, just notice these things. Notice their marketing tactics. Notice who they're trying to attract to purchase their products. Notice that you can't go to a movie without getting messages that you should drink soda and you should eat candy and popcorn. And notice that you can't watch the Super Bowl without celebrities like Ben and J-Lo trying to get you to purchase Dunkin' Donuts, right? Did you notice that when you watched the Super Bowl?
No, I didn't, but it doesn't
true.
surprise me.
Yeah. Notice that the food industry has infiltrated every aspect of our lives, constantly giving us messages that it's time to eat. And they're not giving us messages that we should eat broccoli. They're giving us messages that we should eat their toxic, addictive crap stuff, right?
Right.
So obesity is not a problem of individual people. Obesity is a social issue. It's a public health disaster. Really. I know I sound a little bit crazy and on a soapbox, but it is truly a public health disaster. And unfortunately, my beautiful friend is just one of their more recent victims. Unless we really muster the political will to stop the food industry in the same way we stopped the tobacco industry, there will continue to be more victims like my friend who lived a life of struggle with obesity and diabetes and who's gone too soon, So I implore each of you listening to this podcast, try to protect yourself from the food industry. Do your best to make the choice to eat whole, real foods and take the time to cook real food. It matters. Every meal that you cook for yourself is a vote for a long, healthy, happy life. Does that make sense?
I really like that. Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Say that again. I really like that.
Every meal that you cook for yourself is a vote for a long, healthy, happy life.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
It's true. Yep.
Yeah. So let's not let my friend's life or her untimely death be in vain. Let's all of us think about her as you're thinking about your next meal and try. I'm sure that many of you know people who already have diabetes and who have been struggling with diabetes. Many of you listening to this podcast may know somebody who's died from the effects of diabetes. So let's not let this continue to happen. Let's do something about it. Let's make sure that our children are eating whole foods, that we start our children at young ages learning how to eat real food and not processed crap. Let's not let the food industry get our children addicted at such young ages to stuff that is really like stimulating dopamine response. And let's change this. I'm not kidding. Like, it can be changed, but it takes each individual person saying, no more. I'm done with this. Okay. If you want help getting off processed food and getting on your way to a healthy life, you can get started with my mini workshop. It's called How to Get Rid of Belly Fat. Belly fat is what the real problem is. The workshop is 70 minutes long, and I'm going to teach you everything you need to know to banish belly fat. So just go to journeybeyondweightloss.com/, Banish Belly Fat to sign up. This is a great way to get started on your journey back to a vibrant and healthy life. And if you already have diabetes, do not worry, because learning what you learn in the workshop is going to help you get your diabetes under control and prevent it from getting worse and getting out of control. And you will live a much longer, healthier, happier life. Okay? So, do you have anything else, Marshall?
I was just thinking, I've seen a lot of people come into your clinic and that, have type 2 diabetes.
Yes.
And they're worried, or you've had to give them the diagnosis of diabetes when they come in, and yeah. And through your help, they bring their A1C down and they no longer have diabetes. And I was just thinking of just
wait.
No?
They always have diabetes. Once you have diabetes, you always have diabetes. The question is it under control? So we can get the A1C down into the pre-diabetes range. Many of my diabetic patients get their A1C down into the normal healthy range. You always have diabetes. The only question is it under control or not? Yeah.
I thought once you brought it down into the normal range that you no longer are labeled diabetic. So
lots of people get confused about that.
My bad. All right.
Thanks for listening, everyone, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Hey, if you really want to lose weight and keep it off for good, your next step is to sign up for Dr. Angela's free weight loss course, where you're going to learn everything you need to get started on your weight loss journey the right way. Just head over to journeybeyondweightloss.com/free course to sign up. Also, it would be awesome if you could take a few moments and write a review on iTunes. Thanks, and we'll see you in Journey Beyond Weight Loss.